Son chose his stepfather over me and asked me to give up my parental rights. Everyone, I'm in a really tough spot with my son right now, and I deeply appreciate if you read this with care before commenting. My son just turned 17 a week ago, and this fall, he's supposed to start college. Our relationship has been strained ever since I decided to divorce his mother 2 years ago. No matter how hard I tried to repair things, nothing worked. He keeps pushing me away, and it's painfully heartbreaking. I've tried to stay close. While I had the strength, he doesn't respond to my messages or calls. And when he does come over, he spends all his time in his room, refusing to talk. The only time we communicate is at the dinner table, and even then, he keeps conversations to a minimum. Things with my ex-wife aren't great either, which I think is part of why my son seems to hate me so much now. I'm 44, my ex is 42. We were married almost 20 years. Everything started falling apart after I lost my job a few years ago. I was suddenly fired, and it shook our family. She's a teacher and always managed with her salary, which I admire, but she began resenting me. Even though I was doing everything I could to find a new job, the pressure mounted. Arguments became daily, then we barely spoke unless absolutely necessary. Bitterness built, and she filed for divorce. I didn't fight it. We were both exhausted, but she probably expected me to fight at least a little for our marriage. When I didn't, her hatred only deepened. During the divorce, she called me once, asking if I really planned to end it all. I told her, yes, everything we owned was divided evenly, no disputes, but our relationship was shattered. We had to work together for our son's sake, who struggled with our split. He didn't want us to divorce, and when it happened, he sided with his mother. It hurt deeply. After the divorce, we lived separately. My son naturally stayed with his mother, and I stayed with a friend. I think this is when she convinced him it was all my fault. She pulled him into our battles. It was cruel, but she wanted revenge, and she got it. 3 months ago, she married her colleague. I know him. He'd even visited our house a few times during her work gatherings. Everyone was shocked by their wedding, myself included. I don't know how long they'd been together or if she cheated, but at this point, it doesn't matter. What really hurt was seeing my son's posts about his new stepdad. They attended football games together, spent time together. Even on his birthday, which I wasn't invited to, he posted a picture with his mum and stepdad captioned, "Mum and Dad, it crushed me." I later organized a birthday for him, but he showed zero enthusiasm. He and his friends were in his room with the cake while I sat in the living room, wondering what went wrong. That evening, after his friends left, my son said he wanted to discuss something serious. He told me he had thought a lot and decided he wants me to give up my parental rights so his stepdad can legally adopt him. He said he no longer feels any connection with me and prefers his new family, and he doesn't want me in his life anymore. I was stunned. At first, I wanted to argue, but quickly realized it wouldn't help. If he wants this new life, I can't force him otherwise. Heartbroken, I told him I would do whatever makes him happy. He thanked me and left the next day. The following days were the hardest. I couldn't make myself do anything, even skipped work for a few days. Everything felt meaningless. I had tried so hard to give him a good life, but he doesn't want that life from me at least. I spent days lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying not to break down. I had no idea how to fix things, or if they could even be fixed at all. I knew my ex-wife played a role in this, and I suspect she's happy that she completely severed my bond with my son. I also despised her new husband, not because he married the woman I once loved, but because he was taking my son away from me. But there was nothing I could do. Arguing with my son would only make things worse. All I could do was accept it and hope he might change his mind someday, and then a miracle happened. My son came back yesterday, but not for the reasons I had hoped. I thought maybe he finally realized that I'm his father. Perhaps his mother had brainwashed him, making him believe his stepdad would be a better father. But that wasn't the case. I hoped he'd understand how deeply I love him, and that love would make him reconsider. When he arrived, I was overjoyed, thinking he had changed his mind. But he looked extremely upset. When I asked what was wrong, he told me he didn't want me to give up my parental rights anymore because his stepdad said he couldn't afford his college tuition, so he had to come to me. There were no other options. His mother alone couldn't cover it all, so if he wanted to attend the college of his choice, he'd have to follow the custody agreement. He was heartbroken, and it cut me deeply. I never treated him badly, in fact, quite the opposite. I couldn't understand why he hated me so much. I hadn't done anything to deserve this hatred from my own son. It infuriated me that he despised me for no reason, except maybe because his mother had filled his head with lies. I have to admit she did a good job. I told him he didn't have to engage with me if he didn't want to, and that there are other ways to pay for college, get a job, apply for student loans. If he thinks I'm the worst father, then let him. Do what he needs to ensure his stepdad adopts him, because I don't want him to suffer any longer. Of course, I said it with heavy sarcasm and he understood. He looked embarrassed, said nothing, and I just kept talking. It felt like years of bottled up frustration and hurt, caused by my own son's hatred, finally erupted. I told him I didn't divorce by choice, his mother wanted it. And the only reason she hates me so much is because I didn't fight for our marriage. I don't know what stories she fed him while he lived with her, but I can assure him that the divorce wasn't just my fault. He's only 17 and knows almost nothing about me or my life. If he believes everything his mother told him, he's in for an unpleasant surprise. I'm not his enemy and never wanted the divorce, but if she did, I wasn't going to cling to that relationship. I knew he was upset about the divorce, but I tried to make things as good as possible for him. Even when I lived separately, I came over for dinners, but he ignored me because his mother convinced him it was all my fault. Eventually, I ran out of patience, and my son was just stunned. He had nothing to say. I could see my words had touched him. He looked both shocked and guilty. He barely muttered, sorry, and returned to his mother. The next day, we didn't speak, and I felt terrible about what happened. I should have controlled my emotions, and I'm ashamed for raising my voice, even though he's only 17 and his mother manipulated him for 2 years. But I also feel it was cruel of him to say the only reason he came back was so I would pay for his education. That felt completely wrong, so maybe yelling was my fault, but I couldn't hold back. Before we go on, I invite you to drop your thoughts in the comments. Personally, I think he did the right thing. I've spent my life holding back emotions, never speaking up when hurt, and it backfired. People, unfortunately, don't see silence as virtue, they see it as weakness to exploit. Meanwhile, his mother sits comfortably and continues to manipulate him, telling him I'm to blame for everything, that I left him, that I divorced her, and so on. It's cruel, but sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and speak your mind, even if it's uncomfortable. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments before we continue. Update 1. Hi everyone. I just want to say thank you for all the support and kind messages. It warms my heart to see so many single dads connecting with my story. Stay strong, guys. I also noticed many of you asked whether I ever suspected my ex-wife of cheating. Honestly, no. Even during the divorce, there was nothing that made me think she was unfaithful. Maybe there were signs, but I simply didn't notice them. And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. Whether she cheated or not isn't important. I have all the proof I need that she's a terrible person, using our son just to hurt me. Regarding why I didn't try to have my son live with me during the first months after the divorce, I tried. I really did. But my son insisted he was more comfortable staying with his mother, and since he was still in school, I didn't want to create more problems for him or my friend who was hosting me at the time. I visited occasionally, but the environment was so hostile, thanks to my ex, that I couldn't stay long. Eventually, he began to resent me. I don't know what more I could have done to prevent it. I really tried to shield him from the divorce drama, but my wife made sure to pull him into it and make him hate me. By the time I realized her plan, it was too late. My son had already drifted too far from me. It's been a few days since I last spoke with him. We've been texting but haven't called or met. I haven't heard from my ex either, so I assume he didn't tell her I yelled at him. Usually, he would have complained immediately, causing a huge scene, but since he hasn't, maybe it means he's finally starting to change. I'm cautiously hopeful, just hoping he calls or comes over so we can have a proper conversation and start mending our relationship. Update 2. Today, my son finally visited me, and the meeting, let's just say, was intense. I won't pretend our relationship magically healed. That's not how it works. Fixing years of damage takes time and effort. But today was at least a first step, and I'm grateful for that. At first, he was awkward and uncomfortable, but he apologized for his behavior. He admitted that during our divorce, his mother told him I destroyed our family and didn't fight for it, and he believed her. He hadn't heard my side, and at 15, he just needed someone to blame. I was the easiest target. The situation worsened when his mother remarried. My son said it was entirely her idea to post pictures with his stepdad, pretending they were a happy family even though they weren't that close. She did it just to punish me for the divorce, hiding the fact that she filed for it. She even tried to make him believe he needed me to relinquish parental rights so his stepdad could officially adopt him, but she didn't discuss it with him. She just presented it as a fact. His stepdad was shocked and explained that while he enjoys spending time with him, he isn't ready to adopt because the bond isn't there yet and he didn't want to pay for college if adoption happened. This upset my son deeply, leaving him frustrated and conflicted. It was a relief to finally talk and for him to start seeing the manipulation from his mother. It was an incredible day and we managed to begin restoring our connection. I know rebuilding will take time, but this was a strong start. I told him I'm ready to forgive and start fresh, no matter what happened in the past. He promised to talk to his mother about the lies she's been telling him and even suggested family therapy so we can rebuild in a healthy way. I'm glad this is finally happening and even more satisfied knowing my ex will get what she deserves. She's a terrible person who doesn't deserve to be a mother. Harsh, maybe, but true. Using her son solely to hurt me proves it. I'm even considering seeking full custody, though of course I'll discuss it with him first. If he truly wants to stay with her, I won't force him, but I hope he sees her for who she really is and decides to stay with me. Author's note, she spent years manipulating and gaslighting our son just to make my life miserable. I can't even imagine being that heartless. Update 3, my son just texted me. He wants to come over and he asked me to pick him up from his mother's house. He said he has too many things to take the bus like usual. I'm in shock. I'm almost certain he's decided to move in with me. Everything happened so suddenly. I'm standing outside my ex's house waiting. He asked me to wait a few minutes. I can hear arguing inside, but I can't tell who's shouting at whom. I want to go in and bring him home immediately, but I can't without permission. I know she'll do everything possible to cause trouble, so I'm just waiting outside, hoping he comes out soon. Update 4, the shocking confrontation. He finally got home after an extremely long evening. I'm exhausted, but I feel I need to share what happened so I can process everything that went down today. As I mentioned earlier, I was waiting outside my ex's house because my son asked me to pick him up. A few minutes after posting my last update, he finally came out. Even then, I could hear yelling from inside the house. My son looked furious as he walked to the car with his bags. Soon, I noticed my ex-wife storming out behind him. She was absolutely enraged, and the moment she saw me in the car, she came right up to the window and started screaming. It was terrifying, but I told her that if she didn't step back, I'd call the police. She did back off a little but didn't leave. As I helped my son load his things into the car, she continued shouting at me, claiming I had turned our son against her and calling me every name imaginable. I didn't care. I knew the truth, my son knew the truth, and that was all that mattered. She kept yelling even as we drove away. And suddenly, when we were just a few meters from her house, she threw a rock at the car, smashing my rear light. I pulled over a bit further and immediately called the police to report the incident. My son and I were in shock at her actions. I couldn't believe she would behave like this just because she'd been exposed. I filed a police report against her and returned home a few hours ago. My son had a complete nervous breakdown, and I could see how badly he was affected. Tomorrow, the first thing I'll do is take him to a therapist. I've also decided to file for full custody and a restraining order tomorrow because what happened today is completely unacceptable. I still hope her current husband realizes just how crazy the woman he's living with is and leaves while he still can. I also hope to secure full custody of my son and a restraining order against my ex as soon as possible. That's it for now. As you can see, things turned out to be even more complicated and intense than we imagined. Yet, the ending feels amazing. For me, because I finally got the chance to rebuild my relationship with my son, though gaining full custody was never something I expected this soon. We don't yet know if the court will grant full custody, but I believe there's a very good chance